Welcome back to Sueños to Success. I'm Dr. Victor Rios, your host, and today I'm honored to sit down with an incredible education leader who has a powerful story. And this story reminds us that the smallest moments in a child's life can shape a lifetime of purpose. Dr. Darren Mcduffie is the superintendent of Santa Maria-Bonita School District. He was born and raised in South Los Angeles. And of course, as you know, it's a community rich of culture, resilience, and lots of heart. And he's had an incredible journey as an educator and playing other roles in life. And he'll talk about that in a minute. But also, just being able to overcome all the obstacles that life gives and then be able to provide that inspiration for others. He's been a teacher, a principal, and he leads an incredible school district. But what makes Dr. Mcduffie's leadership remarkable is how deeply personal it is, grounded in empathy, authenticity, and an unwavering belief in the potential of every single child. Dr. Mcduffie, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, Victor. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I know you, when you talk to your educators, you remind them of the power of an educator, and you remind them of how sometimes a child could be stuck in a place where um, maybe they don't have all the resources. Maybe people out there are judging them. And you have your own journey being a little kindergartner,
Yeah.
being judged, and then developing an identity based on that judgment. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to especially new teachers just getting into the prep profession, but I always think it's important for me to tell my story. It's important to me. It's a core of who I am. And I talk to teachers about that all the time. And I grew up in South Los Angeles, like you said, in 1972. That's quite a while ago. But we moved from my mom and dad, my older sister and brother, and me. I was the baby of the family. We moved from an apartment into our first house in South LA. Um, about 3 weeks in, there was a fire, and we had to move from South LA. Now, if you know anything about South LA or South Central LA, it was a predominantly black neighborhood. We had to go and live with my grandmother, who was in the San Fernando Valley, which was predominantly a white neighborhood. Um, it was difficult. I was going to kindergarten and had to move with my grandmother, um, but I had a great time. But it was the first time that I realized that there was just something off. I couldn't tell you as a 5-year-old. But I was the only black student in a kindergarten class at Plummer Elementary, I think it was. And I had a great time. I had a friend that a buddy of mine, a 5-year-old kindergartner, white kid, and we'd play I Spy, or we called it I Spy, where he'd go around to the playground and he'd hide or pretend to hide, and I'd know where he was, and I'd go I Spy. Then he'd go around to another part of the playground. And there was this one particular time when we were out at recess, and our classroom is adjacent to a first grade classroom. And the room was open, and we're playing I Spy, and I see him run into our classroom. And so I run in after him, and there's a door that's adjacent to the first grade classroom. So I see him going through the door, and I go in after him, and I bump into probably the biggest first grader that you can imagine during that time.
That time to you, he seemed like he was
Oh,
so
man.
tall.
It was crazy. But I bumped into him. They were still in class, and he said to me, turned around, he said, "I can't believe you ran into me, you N-word." And he hit me in the eye, and
Punched you?
he punched me. And I'm there crying, but it really didn't faze me necessarily of what he said at the time, because I didn't understand too much of that. But The teacher, the first grade teacher, was about 5 feet away, and she came up to both of us, and she grabbed me by the arm, and she said, "I thought I told you, or I thought I told you kids not to be in here during recess. You're supposed to be outside playing. Johnny or whatever his name, go sit down." And then she took me to my kindergarten teacher. And I didn't know what was happening. I was crying, but she took me to my kindergarten teacher, and she said, "You know these kids aren't supposed to be in here. Make sure that they're on the playground," or whatever she said. And my kindergarten teacher looked at me, um, and she said, "I'm so disappointed in you,"
Wow.
right? And and she said she's gonna take me to the nurse to have my grandmother come and pick me up, which was trouble because she was working. She had to get off work. And when she came to pick me up, she asked me, "What happened? What's wrong with you?" And I didn't tell her anything because I was afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I ran into the room. I bumped into a kid. I had two teachers upset with me, so I really thought it was my fault
Yeah.
that what happened happened. Um, so 3 days later, it's Saturday. Um, some cartoon was on, Hong Kong Phooey or something back in the 70s, and my sister was braiding my hair. It's 1972. I wanted afro, so you braid the hair and it becomes fluffier and bigger. And so she was braiding my hair, and my uncle comes in, and I sent you a picture of this. My uncle comes in, and he has this Polaroid camera. 1972, just got out of the Navy, and he comes in. He says, "Okay, let's go outside so we can take a picture." Um, and I run into the bathroom to look at my hair, and I just started crying. And I don't know what it was, but the situation that I thought about was having that conflict with that first grader, and the way he called me the N word, and I just started bawling. Um, and my sister was trying to console me, and my uncle comes in and he says, "Come on, let's go outside." I was like, "I can't go outside. I'm so ugly."
Wow.
And that's what I felt, right?
So this triple injustice. You got the kid calling you the N-word, punching you in the face, a teacher blaming you, and a second teacher blaming you. Triple injustice happens to you. That caused this kind of internalization of, man, I must be that bad that now that I'm looking at the mirror, seeing my face, I am ugly.
Yeah, yeah, felt that way. And we went out, and he put this funky hat on my head. My brother, uh, who is totally opposite of me, he's smiling, and uh, you can barely see my eyes, but that was the worst day in my 5 years of living. That picture is captured, and
'Cause it's a racial realization.
yeah,
And when we come to a racial realization as kids, you realize not only am I different, but the world is gonna always treat me differently.
yes, yes,
And that happens a lot to kids that come from backgrounds where people are used to making them feel less than.
absolutely, absolutely. And when you hear things going on, whether it's George Floyd or something that's happening with people of color, it is almost like a flashback to the pain or the feeling that I had, right? And something that can't be necessarily appointed to a particular event, but just that feeling. that
Been there.
happens.
I've been there. I felt that not just one injustice, because when those events happen, it feels like a triple injustice
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time, right? It's like
Absolutely.
stacks up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was I was a little kid, man, growing up in Oakland, and I was one of the few Mexican kids in the neighborhood at the time, and man, people would chase me down because I was Mexican, and then people would come after me just for being Mexican, and calling me burrito boy.
Yeah.
Junior high school, my cousin and I got jumped pretty bad, man. My cousin ended up hospitalized. They was just looking for Mexicans, and
Mhm.
we happened to be two Mexicans in
Yeah.
the neighborhood, and they found us, man, right by the school, and just growing up realizing, like, man, like, people don't like my kind to the point where I'm not feeling like I like my kind as well,
Right.
right? You internalize it. You look in the mirror, and like you said, growing up for me, I always tell kids this. I always say, look, when I was little, all the way to like age 18, I looked in the mirror. I'm like, man, you ugly.
Mhm.
Man, you dumb.
Yeah.
Man, you stupid.
Right.
All the negative self-esteem. And then I tell the kids, I'm like, now I look at the mirror, I'm like, hey, man, you smart. Man, you got
Exactly.
this. Man, I believe in you. And I ask the kids, what changed? And then they say, your attitude. And at some point along the way, right, all those injustices, we choose careers to try to break those injustices so that other little kids don't have to go through what we went through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned about being beat up, and it happened. Me and my brother, who we really deal with our feelings very differently. I can remember at my grandma's house, um, a boy who was the manager's son, um, a white boy who came up to us, and he was teasing my brother, who's about 11 months older than I am. We're treated like twins, but he was teasing us, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he reaches out to shake his hand, and he punches him in the stomach, calls him the N word, punches him in the stomach, and it was it's devastating to the fact that, um, the feelings for me, I was, like I said, a compliant kid. I was always quiet. For my brother, it was rage for him.
Yeah.
And, we just kind of lived our lives in through these different lenses of how we dealt with situations like that. So it's fascinating how
And then
we
we
deal with it.
then we ask, well, why are these kids acting up so much?
Absolutely.
There's research from Stanford University that found that implicit bias can appear as early as preschool, where teachers are 34% more likely to perceive challenging behavior in black boys, even when no misbehavior occurs. And that's been my research for 20 years, looking at African American and Latino boys in particular,
Mhm.
and how they navigate what some people call the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And you can start like looking at someone, going to interview them when they're in prison, like, hey, how'd you end up in prison? But my work, I start when they're really young and just say, hey, what's going on in school? What's going on at home? How can we make sure that we provide enough resources so that you don't get caught up in that system?
Right.
But unfortunately, right, even if we provide some resources, some time, some support, there's always going to be young people that don't have it. And you follow kind of how they get in trouble. You follow how they get kicked out of school. You follow how they end up in the courts, and then in juvie, and then in county jail, and then in prison.
Right.
And I even had a couple guests here on the podcast that went through that pipeline. And what they always talk about is how it could start at home, or it could start in the community, or it could start at school. But there's somewhere along the line where someone made you feel less than. And because you feel less than, all of a sudden, you don't care what happens to you and your trajectory. You become fatalistic. And for some of these young men, they end up lashing out in anger. because I feel like for men, um, there's two emotions we get programmed to have, and that is anger or withdrawal. That's
Yes.
it, right?
Yes.
And that's, I think, the crisis in manhood right now, where there's men out there that don't know how to express more emotion than those two. Um, and learning how to express emotion is so important, and teaching young people how to express emotion is important. But in terms of even the way you describe you and your brother, he would take it out in anger, you would take it out in withdrawal.
Withdrawal.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. That tells the two tales of our growing up
Yeah.
in LA. But I want to tell you that story of kindergarten, how as a boy, I went through very compliant through first grade. We actually moved back to South LA, and through first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I was compliant. But it was a fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Cotton, and she saw the students in her classroom so authentically. So she would genuinely cared, and you could feel that. It wasn't about textbooks. It was a feeling that she had, and she changed the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
She, it wasn't a math class, or it wasn't, reading a book. It was actually art, and we were in line for. I don't know if you remember, we had construction closets where they had all the art paper and the the scissors and the glue, and I look on her desk, and there's this book, Jaws 2. It was 1978, and the movie was out, and you see this picture, and I pick up the book, and I'm looking for pictures in the book, and before I know it, Mrs. Cotton is standing right above me, and she says, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "No, I'm just looking for pictures. That's it." And she said, "What do you want to read that book?" And I just, I flippantly just like, "Psh, I can't read this book," and I flipped it back on her desk. And it was that moment where she just looked at me and she said, "Don't ever say that. You are capable of great things."
Mm.
And she gave me the book. And I was a fifth grader at the time, but it was the first time anyone had ever told me that I was capable of great things. And what that did for me is, when I became an educator, it was something, and even now, that I harp on, and I make sure that my students knew that they were capable of great things. It didn't have to be during a lesson. It could have been between two kids having a disagreement, or whatever, but I made sure to tell my students that they were capable of great things, and that was because of Miss Cotton changing
Wow.
my
So
life.
you okay, so you got this construct in you, right? Starting in kindergarten, like, I'm not good enough for this world, right? And the world had taught you that in one way or another through, injustices, right? You get to fifth grade and you got a low kind of self concept. You're like, man, I can't read this book.
Right.
I can't do this. I can't do that. And this one teacher just came to you and said, "Hey, you're capable of greatness." And in that moment, you start to shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it wasn't that I couldn't read before, but I didn't have the confidence in myself to say that I can do anything. It was more that people had to tell me what to do, or how to act, and she gave me uh, that inspiration. I started reading. I started to get into drama.
Yeah.
Junior high school, I was in drama, and you know,
Yeah.
started getting into performing arts because of her.
That's beautiful. You know, there's so much to say about teaching kids from different backgrounds, African American communities. Latina communities, you know, even kids with various disabilities, to teach them about people like them that have achieved greatness in life. And yet, we're still not at a point in our society where our children can feel like they're learning the materials of people like them who have contributed to making the United States a great country,
Right. Right.
right? We still have kind of the old narrative that's like people like you don't really exist in the history books unless you fought some civil rights struggle in the 1960s and then you're gone again.
Right.
And so how do we make sure that little kids that might be looking at the mirror and saying, "Man, you ugly," can look at a book and say, "Hey, actually, people like me have also done great things."
Yeah. 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 I the only book I had or I remember as a kid was it Dick and Jane? The books that had nothing to do with me and my experience in South Central LA. And it is so important because I felt like that I was a visitor uh, at school. Like it wasn't somewhere where I belonged. And it's so important, I think, to be able to have literature that reflects the students that are within that community. I mean, I think uh, it's important for us to be able to show that and reflect that, and simply for the fact that I'm a superintendent, for people to see me in a suit. I remember kindergarten kid looking at me and say, "Oh my goodness, it's President Obama." This was back when he first got elected as president, right? And I'm in the suit. And he's like, "How much money do you make?" And it was just a blast. But kids say what's on their mind, and they don't get that representation. So he thought it was President Obama. So
Wow, 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 wow. I mean, yeah, the sort of they can only see what they know, and if they only
yeah,
know that there's only one African American man that
in a
could
suit.
possibly, be a leader at the time, of course, the president, but then after that, you know,
Yeah,
not a lot of that role modeling for little kids to see like, okay, this is what positive professional black men in our society are doing. And then for them to have that as a exposure so that again, we have a society where we recognize the multicultural contributions of all our communities
yeah,
so that little
absolutely.
kids aren't growing up like, man, I'm nobody. I mean, I think that's the reason why I decided to, write the children's book, Victor's Not My Name. I know you got to see the
Yes.
copy and the reason was like that wasn't like me growing up, like I did not have faith in who I was. And even though people would be like, Victor means winner, I was like, "Nah, I'm a loser, like, that's
Hmm.
who I am." And so my whole childhood, I'm fighting this idea that my name is Victor, my name is Winner. It's like, "Nah, my name is not that. My name is Loser." And just fighting that day to day, man, that was a tough struggle.
Yes.
But the beauty of it is that teachers along the way, particularly for me, it wasn't until later in high school, my teacher, Miss Russ, was like, I believe in you. I
Hmm.
need you to believe in yourself. She believed in me so much, she ended up tricking me to believe in myself. And that's the beauty of, I think, a mentor or a teacher or just some random person that tells
Yes.
you, hey, it doesn't matter what you've been through. Um, you can achieve greatness and I'll be here to guide you along the
Yes,
route.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly, when I read your book, I was thinking of myself and um, the lack of pride I had in my name. Um, and it's very ironic in a sense, my mother named me Darren after an actor she loved in the 60s, Darren McGavin.
Mm.
And I actually became an actor in high school, right? And so, it's interesting how the name when I was a kid meant nothing to me. I didn't wanna be associated with Darren. My first name was Horace. I go by Darren. Um, Horace is my grandfather's name, but I was teased for that name. And so, I think it's important that we tell our story so that it really connects. And it does. It connects to students and their experiences. We're all humans, and we have the same feelings, the same experiences, and just maybe different perspectives that we come from. Right?
Yeah, and also, storytelling is a way of passing knowledge on, at least in a lot of communities of struggle, a lot of ethnic, multicultural communities, where it is through storytelling, indigenous communities, that you pass knowledge on. So teaching is both the academic and the entertainment are intertwined.
Absolutely.
And those traditions and the Leslie Mormon Silko, the Native American scholar, author, novelist, she says, a word of caution, our stories aren't just for entertainment. And so we're not just here storytelling to like entertain people, we're storytelling to pass knowledge on, to educate others, and even more important, to build a better world. And
Absolutely.
teaching children how to tell stories, I think, is such an important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was a teacher, that was the most engaging part of learning and growing for kids is to be connected and to be able to imagine through storytelling how to actually speak for themselves. And uh, being a performing arts student as well, and being in the theater, another thing that it talks or it teaches is empathy and the caring of different perspectives, because you read about others, and you read about different people and their perspective. And so I think it's important for us to continue that storytelling within the teaching community for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you eventually, once that teacher kind of had that impact on you, speaking to Darren, right? You lived up to the name.
Absolutely.
You went on to do a little bit of and was that your aspiration? You were like, once you got a little taste of acting, you were like, hey, I want to be an actor one day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually I wanted to be the next Spike Lee back in 1991 when I got out of high school and out of the army. I wanted to be the next Spike Lee and make film, black film. So it was all from Jaws 2. Um, I was in junior high, and uh, I had a choice to either take PE or drama. It was like, drama? What's drama? And the teacher said, well, you can read about characters and make. And she said read, and I was like, I'm on it. And from there, being able to read and get into different characters, and this is where the empathy comes in, to understand sometimes characters weren't developed, so you had to make up what their life was. How did they grow up? Did they have a family? And so it got you to think beyond what your experience was. And so performing arts for me was a way to not just entertain, but allow people to think, provoke thought in a way that was non-threatening to them.
Why so?
I think we all have a connection. This is a universal connection. We have it with music, right? And also when we are being entertained or when we perform. A lot of great stand-up comedians, they talk about very serious issues, but they say it in a way, or they talk about it in a way that lets the guard down for folks, so they can really be able to think about what it is that the subject is about, and make those connections of why we're different, but we also have a universal connection as human beings.
I think strategy is so important. I teach heavy topics to my college students: racism, sexism, classism. And during our times now, I mean, some of us are on lists, right,
Yeah,
or being taken out because of what we teach. And during these tough times, it's like you gotta be strategic, not because people are gonna come after you, but you gotta be strategic because that's how people learn. And so you can go up to someone and say, "Hey, this society is racist, and you're part of that racism." And then, or you can say something like, "Hey, let me show you this story about Darren McDuffie in, you
right.
know, kindergarten and what happens to him." And people are like, "Whoa, that happened in the '70s? Let me ask, is there a little Darren McDuffie running around right now?" And I can confirm yes, because the kids I interviewed recently about their life trajectory, who got in trouble because they lashed out, and I interviewed them about when they were little. And like one of the young men, he said to me, I was in 6th grade, 5th grade. I was in 5th grade, young African American male. And he goes, I kept getting stopped by police and pocket checked, you know. And he said, and I said to the police officer, why are you stopping me so much? And he goes, because you look like a drug dealer. And he goes, but I'm in 5th grade. He goes, you don't look like you're in 5th grade. You look like a drug dealer. And, the injustice of turning this little boy into an adult, right? And
Yes,
saying, you look like the usual suspect.
right.
And telling those stories so that people know, like, this is different than people just complaining that someone, disrespected them because of the color of their skin, which that's important too. But
Absolutely.
there's day to day struggles that people go through that's deeper than just someone being individually racist.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And just to share those stories so that people make up their mind, like they could be their own, you know, thinkers and say, hey, there's still injustice out there. How do we change that?
Yeah, absolutely. I know with being in the performing arts, I do a sermon from Martin Luther King Jr. called "The Drum Major Instinct," and I've done this for kids in 5th grade, middle school, high school, adults, and the cool thing about it is that when they hear that voice, and uh, it's almost taking them back, but it suspends. I don't want to say it suspends their belief, but it really takes them to a place where they disengage and they begin to listen to the words of King. And the drum major instinct really, um, it, it's uh, it's about being first. It's about being out front, and how we in society have perverted that use of this drum major instinct through uh, pulling others down in order to push ourselves up. And Dr. King talks about how we need to be first in service. He talks about that we ought to be first in love, in moral excellence, in generosity. And I could say it as Darren, and people probably will listen. But when you hear it in the voice and the words of Dr. King, it just becomes that much more powerful, where people begin to think about it just a little bit deeper.
That's fascinating. You wouldn't happen to have a couple lines you want to share for us?
Oh gosh. Wow. I'll just start off at the very beginning, because he's preaching in the sermon. And so this morning I would like to use as a subject from which to preach the drum major instinct. The drum major instinct. And the drum major instinct is a desire to be out front, a desire to lead the parade, a desire to be first. And it is something that runs the whole gamut of life. So I'll stop there.
Wow, man. I mean, that's the thing about summoning the ancestors, right? Is
Yeah,
they're always with us. You just gotta summon them.
absolutely.
And there's spaces in our society that don't allow us to summon the ancestors. And I think the basic job of an educator, of a mentor, of someone helping others that have been left behind is to make it okay for them to summit their ancestors.
Absolutely. To pull those stories out and to be able to really gain so much perspective. And when I heard that sermon, I wasn't in high school. I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and it was an old scratchy record my mother had of his speeches, right? So even as a kid, I thought to myself, how could this happen? Like he's talking about some heavy stuff, and things are still the same in my neighborhood. Things are still the same in the United States, and it's I think it's important because if I had an opportunity to lend my voice, right? I don't think we give students the opportunity, enough opportunity to give voice to their experience, to give voice to the spaces that they're in. Um, but they matter, and they have these feelings just as adults do that need to be told, that need to come out. So
Well, that's in all of the science that I use when I go work with kids getting in trouble. Uh, I go back to the story, and when I meet them, they're all like, they don't want to talk. They don't. And a few days into it, a few hours into it, if I could get them to like open up a little bit, start to share their story, and their story not just it's not just a therapy, but it's a strategy because then if they go from that victim to the survivor to the thriver, if they could go from telling their story as a thriver now, if they can start to share their story for solutions, for
yeah,
change in the community, and the story for leadership, then you start to see positive outcomes in them. Because when you're a leader, you're not just leading yourself, you're leading others. Others are relying on you, your family, your community.
absolutely.
And these kids, they start to like shift their logic. They start to say, well, I'm not in it on my own. I got other people looking up to me, my little siblings that I'm helping to raise, or, you know, others in the community. I have to tell a story of overcoming and then overstanding whatever obstacles have come in my way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
So you go, okay, so you're acting, you're in high school. How do you shift? Because you talked about the military a little bit. Or how do you shift from like acting to all of a sudden now you're enrolled in the military? And you were in like Desert Storm, right?
I served Operation Desert Storm, fuel truck driver. So yes, I was a part of that. I was stationed up in San Francisco, supporting troops over in Kuwait. Um, I think performing arts served me well in the army, and I'll tell you, for me, I went into the military because it was the first decision that I made that no one else had a say in as an adult, and I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out of LA, and so it was the first time that I made a decision that no one else had a say in. And about the military, the same at our school district. It's about mission.
Mm.
When I joined the military, it deepened my understanding or allowed me to be open to different perspectives. I had a roommate who was from the backwoods of Alabama, Charles Thomas, and we talk. He didn't know anything about the streets of LA, and I didn't know anything about deer hunting, right? It was fascinating because we were so different, but when we came together, we had a mission, and and we had to collaborate. We had to work in teams. We had to be able to build something, although we were different. And we found that human connection, right? We you find those human connections that are common, and the diversity in our different experiences just brought that uh, richness to our life, even in the military. And the same is true at our organization in Santa Maria. Um, it's a human organization with different perspectives and different people with different abilities and different gifts and talents, and to be able to broaden that and see the different perspectives is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah, I mean, the people that serve, right, in the military, man, they're coming from all walks of life and the multicultural pluricity of our society, right? It's like everyone's coming together, so it's truly a salad bowl, right? Like every
absolutely.
single group is showing up and like representing,
Yeah, yeah.
and mostly working class folks that are signing up, and so you got similar um in terms of economic experiences, like, "Oh, your family struggled, my family struggled." It just happens to be in a
Mhm.
big city versus, the country,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So but then you get those connections and, you start to say, "Well, we're a lot more similar than people make us out to be."
Right.
And then we start to break all those crazy racial differences that
Yeah, it's great.
pervade society. So let me ask you though, because you went from, this drama kid to the like, what's the bridge to the mil how'd you decide, like, "Oh, I'm headed to the mil," like, did you, like, serendipitously, like, just run into some kinda, like, sign up for the military? What happened?
It's interesting because I always thought of the military. I had mentioned earlier that my uncle was in the Navy,
Right.
right? And it was something about the adventure of traveling and learning and understanding different perspectives, right? I wanted to go to Germany. I got a chance to go to Germany, even though I wasn't stationed there, but I got a chance to go to Germany. I wanted to travel. And in my circumstance in LA, even at high school, I'll tell you, Victor, I was a performing arts major, but counselor never told me about like going to college. Like that was late in my 12th grade year, and I hadn't filled out any applications, and so the opportunities, again, the access was not there for me, and I made the decision. I want to get away. I want to travel. I want to do this, and I think part of being that kid, that performing arts kid, was in performing arts or in acting. I discovered these different characters, right? And it was all about discovering and learning, and traveling, different places. So I think that was probably,
Wanted to see the world.
origin.
That was one of the few opportunities. It's not like you were in some, uh incredible college going culture situation where they were setting you up for college. You were like, okay, what opportunities are out there? The military is a strong one for me. I'm gonna head in that direction.
I actually decided to go to college after getting into the Army. I mean, I learned more about college. I said, I want to get out, because I had an opportunity to become a leader, non-commissioned officer in the Army. I said, no, I want to get out. I want to go to school. Or, again, a different experience, and I wanted to get back to what I had said. I wanted to be the Spike Lee of my era, even though Spike Lee was already hot, and I wanted to be the next one. And so um, I got out to go to college. I took I think it was ACT or the SAT, and I applied for colleges, and uh, that's how I got back into education.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
You ever by chances had a chance to meet Spike Lee?
No. Do you know him?
No, I don't. But
I was gonna say,
Spike
give me his
Lee,
number.
if you out there, man, are listening, Spike Lee, hey, we
Yes.
got Dr. Mcduffie that's always been a life fan of yours, man. Reach out, you know where to find him.
Talk
Find him
about
at
him all the
Maria-Bonita
time.
Unified School
That's
District,
right.
or reach out to me and we'll find him for you. But no, it'd be great for you to meet him because I think just even him, you know, knowing that you've been always aspiring in that way, and then so you get back, you know, you're getting an education and you're like, "Okay, Imma be an educator now."
Mhm.
And so you go teach. Where are you teaching? What grades are you teaching?
Yeah, funny that you say that. I started teaching in Minnesota.
Oh,
Yeah.
because you were probably because you had been in the military,
I
moved
was in the
around?
military, but actually, when I got out, started going to Cal State Long Beach to begin with, uh, my, girlfriend, who is now my wife of 34 years, she decided to join the Navy,
Oh,
and she was, stationed in Minnesota, and so I finished my college up, there, and I'll tell you, it was, very interesting because I didn't know whether I wanted to actually be in education. I said, I'll I'll major in elementary education. This is a small liberal arts college, Augsburg College. Um, and a professor came to me and he said, "We'd like you to do a summer school for Minneapolis Public School, for the summer and kids who need assistance." I was like, "Oh man, the summer? Like that's my time to be off." And I said, "Well, I'll think about it, right?" And it was April, and I come home from school, and on TV I see the LA uprising, the riots
oh,
in 1992. And I don't know what it was exactly, but it was a definite switch for me.
and that's your old stomping ground. That's your neighborhood.
It
That's your
was
community.
it was street Vermont was burning up down the street from my house. It felt looked like a war zone. And at that point, I went back to Professor Drulo, Dr. Drulo, and I said, "Where do I sign up?" And so that really validated for me that I needed to be a teacher, regardless of whether I was in Minnesota or whether I was in LA. I had to do my part, and started taught fifth grade for a couple of years out there, and then came back to LA to teach in wow all over the place in Southern California. So
Wow.
yeah,
Did you always like, okay, you started teaching and then you were like, man, one day I want to be superintendent. Did that cross your mind in the very beginning? Did you have that kind of leadership, self-efficacy? Like, I'm
it's
doing
funny
this.
because you talked about mentors
Yeah.
earlier, right? I never thought that I'd be a superintendent. Never. I didn't even know when I was teaching superintendent. Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't
That's
know what they did.
the wizard just
Yeah, yeah.
behind the
Behind that
curtain.
curtain. Yeah.
Just cutting paychecks. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I wanted to be in the classroom, but I was teaching seventh grade, um, and our assistant principal, um, he kind of sparked me, not in a good way either.
Mm.
He didn't know students' names. He didn't know. Uh, I mean, during recess or during lunch, he'd just walk around, kind of in a daze, and students would have issues, and he just never talked to kids. And I was a seventh grade teacher, and I knew more students on that campus than he did. And I dealt with conflict with students on campus. And the next day, I'd see him around and say, "Hey, hey, what's going on with you? How's it going?" And I'd say, "Hey, Daniel," and they say, "Oh, he knows my name, right?" And so I realized that I was building these relationships more broadly than just in my classroom. And that prompted me to get my administrative credential and become an administrator, become an assistant principal, and then principal. But
So it was a negative role modeling.
it was a negative role modeling in that part.
You were like, I can do better than this.
Absolutely.
We need more people in leadership that can actually do better than this guy kind of
Yes, yes, yes. I was doing his job, you know,
as a teacher.
as a teacher, because I thought it was most important to be able to, like I said, let students know they're capable of great things, even when they don't understand that yet, right?
Yeah.
And so it was, it was great. Once I became a principal, um, a superintendent said to me, "You're going to be a superintendent one day."
Ah,
You
that's when you started to see that.
and I started to see
Vision.
that. Yeah. I said, superintendent. I don't know about that. Um, but it was someone else telling me that I had it.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, along the way, that journey of mentors, right? And people telling you the right things. If you could go back, you got, you know, little Darren, kindergarten, right when this like interaction is gonna happen, like, you're giving them some protective factors. You're like giving them some armor. You say, "Hey, little Darren, this is about to happen." What would you What would you tell little Darren?
Well, that's a tough question thinking about it. My fifth grade teacher told me that I was capable of great things, but I think the factor of the self determination, right? Um, there's a plaque that I got when I was like I was going through the Hawthorne Mall, and I got this plaque talking about persistence and determination. Um, eh, and I bought it, and I kept it in my room. I keep it in my office, but I would tell little Darren, "Don't give up. Be persistent and be determined to be who you are." And I think there's so many things that pull from that and that take away from who you are. And if you're not persistent and determined to be Darren, just stay there. Be patient, but just be persistent. Be determined. Um, you're gonna make it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Now you talked a little bit about your brother, and you said the differences were that you were with Don, and he kind of, you know, took out his the injustices he faced on the world. He took them out more in an extroverted kind of anger way.
Yeah.
What trajectory did your brother have?
My brother had a tougher time. He's doing great. He's in St. Louis right now, with his family. But uh, it's funny because he expressed his emotion in anger, um, a lot. Uh, and actually, it's something that I think back. I wish I had done, but I can only do that on stage, right? Like it's a safe way to do it, and that outlet for me was on stage, where his outlet was in everyday life. And I actually admired my brother for that. Thinking back, like, we didn't have the greatest relationship when we were kids, but when I look back and we talk now, I admired him for his courage and for the fact that he spoke, his voice. He spoke how he felt, and I think sometimes seeing that, having that perspective, and understanding where that anger comes from, as far as if teachers can see that and understand, um, it would make for those opportunities, for people like my brother. So
Yeah, but and again, young men get taught two emotions, right? Two emotional states
that's
of
right.
withdrawal or anger, and looking out for um, ways in which we could teach young men, all young people, but young men in particular, because it's predictable a lot of times. Um, hey, you know what? you don't have to withdraw.
Mhm.
You could stay right here in the moment and talk to me about our issue, and you don't have to get pissed off about our
Right.
issue and try to hit me. We're just gonna sit here,
Yeah.
be in the moment, and tell me how you feel. "Oh, man, you really disrespected me, and I didn't like that." "Okay, how did that really make you feel?" "Felt make me feel sad." Ooh, for a young man to
Mhm.
tell you that he's sad,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a long journey to travel, but teaching them that it's okay for you to say, "Hey, you hurt my
Yeah,
feelings,"
absolutely.
instead of
Absolutely.
trying to punch me in the face because
Yeah.
I hurt your feelings,
Yeah.
or just completely shutting
Yeah,
down, and then
frustration. Yeah.
relationships suffer in the future because then, you're in a relationship with your, you know, loved ones, and then they say something and you just shut down. Oh, that's Pops. He's just sitting at the couch, just drinking his beer and not talking about his problems,
Right.
right? It doesn't like
Right.
how it affects men and then how it affects families. It's important
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
teach, I think, our young men from when they're little, like, hey, you gotta, you gotta recognize um, the anger box that has been developed in your life.
Mhm.
And that anger box teaches you to lash out. That anger box teaches you to self-hate. That anger box teaches you um, to pull away from people that are trying to help you.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
instead, you got to enter into the healing circle. And the healing circle is when you reach out to good friends that are going to be there to lift you up.
Yeah.
The healing circle is when you listen to your mentors. And the healing circle is when you express a positive emotion.
Yeah.
It's okay to express emotion. It's okay to cry. All of those emotions are game because at the end of the day, we become better men for everyone in our lives when we do that
Absolutely.
kind of
And
work.
I'll tell you, my brother is one of the brightest, funniest people I know. And you wouldn't see that part of him, right? You wouldn't know that. I had an insight on my brother, and I'll tell you, I looked up to him for that. Like he was someone who could figure out anything, and yeah, it was again that dichotomy of me being the compliant one and him being the one to tell it like it is and
Yeah.
not care.
Yeah. Well, I got my older brother, he was looking out for me when mom wasn't around. He was practically raising me at times. And I think because he had to play the parental figure, he ended up becoming the one that withdraws. He ended up becoming the one that kind of like didn't express much emotion. So you talk to him, he's always like, "Yeah, what's up?" Stoic,
Yeah, right,
he's a
right,
stoic
right.
guy. He's like, "What up, bro?" I'm like, "What's up, man? You good?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good. How are you?" He's very formal with me. I'm like, "Hey, chill, bro. It's just me calling you right now.
Right, right.
How are you feeling? How are you really feeling?" And then I have to like send him, like, videos of, like, funny videos, that are trying to, like, express emotion, and then he'll get a laugh out of it, and then he'll comment. He's like,
There you
"Oh,
go.
I see what you're doing. Are you trying to give it express emotion through humor?" I'm like, "Exactly." So, no, but those kinds of trying to understand, right, how we get programmed early on
Right.
and how that leads us to pick even careers where we're always chasing, helping that little Victor or that little Darren, in other kids that are currently in the moment
Absolutely.
struggling. And
Absolutely.
that work that you're doing as a school leader, I mean, not only are you helping the little Darrens, the little Victors, the little Marys, the little Jessicas, all those little kids that are struggling, but also you're leading an entire community of educators that have signed up to make a difference and to change lives
Yeah.
in a community that's powerful, but it also is a community of struggle.
Yeah.
People get by however they can, and you're there to provide them the support and the services. So what?
Also
So now you're a soup,
responsibility.
right? You're a big dog, right? What is it like? Like what is like? I got a lot of high schoolers that listen to the show with their teachers, and they always comment and stuff. And uh, what is it like to be like a big boss? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like for like a high schooler, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a big boss. I'm gonna cut checks one day. What is that feeling like?
Well, I don't consider myself a big boss, right? It's an awesome responsibility, though. It's an awesome responsibility, and, one of the things that, I say and we try to, express in Santa Maria, that being a leader is not a matter of position, it's a matter of person.
Mm.
And so, I go in the classroom and someone called me the boss. I'm like, "No, I'm in a role and a position to help you, but I'm not the boss of you."
Yeah.
And I try to make that person, right? Leading with person, it's about character, it's about commitment, it's about competence, knowing your stuff, right? And it's about care. It's about care, like that empathy piece. And so I try to flip that and kind of what I call flatten the organization, right? We have this hierarchy of he's up top. He does this, but to provide that voice and saying, I have a role that I play as a student or a teacher. You have a role that you play. How are you doing that with character, with competence, with caring, with commitment, right? And so it's really about bringing out. I tell teachers this, like, uh, you have to be the very best version of yourself. Students, you have to be the very best version of yourself in order to be able to help someone else, to be able to care for someone else. And I'm always saying that, like, I can't be a leader that just sits sits back on my laurels and like, okay, I'm here, I made it, I've arrived, right? I'm the big boss, right? I can't do that. I have to continue to become and uh self-actualize, man. Be the very best person, right? Because when I'm the very best person I am, then I can do more. I can impart and inspire, and serve as that person. And we all have unique gifts, talents that make an organization what it is. When you leave, the organization is very different than when you were here. You bring something special. And so everyone has a special gift, a special talent that no one else has that makes this community what it is. And so being the very best is something that's a personal journey, that we have to help each other out with. So
That's beautiful. There, I mean, and that daily commitment you have of making others feel seen, safe, and significant. I mean, that's admirable. There's a Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence study that found when school leaders intentionally cultivate caring relationships, teacher burnout decreases by 36% and student engagement rises by 22%. And another research study from the National Equity Project shows that when leaders engage in active reflection and empathy based decision making, disciplinary referrals drop by up to 40% and staff retention improves by nearly uh, 30%. So you've already talked about how you're a humble leader and not so much like, "Hey, I'm here, now y'all have to do all of this," but instead, like, I'm leading with empathy. That way, you're modeling how our educators should be leading our children with that empathy.
absolutely.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. So, um, I had an experience in your district, actually. It was one of your middle schools, and there was this one kid that was getting in trouble, and, uh, and we were working with some, middle schoolers over there, and then, we were giving away prizes, and the one kid, that was, not doing well in school, getting in a lot of trouble, um, she, uh, she won a prize, and it was a gift card, and, like one of those Visa gift cards, and one of her friends came up to me, he goes, "Hey, mister, you shouldn't have give her that gift card." I go, "Why not?" "Uh, she's gonna go vape," and I was like, "Oh my goodness," right? I was like, "What did I just do?" And then, a couple weeks later, I came back. I was checking up on everyone, seeing how things were going. And one of the teachers goes, "Hey, so and so, she was getting in trouble, she had a lot going on." She was like a shot caller, so she had all these boys that would follow her, and, like, she would actually tell them what to do,
Mhm.
and they would do it because otherwise
Yeah,
they would
yeah.
get like that. She was an enforcer, right? So, she's pretty awesome actually, but she was just a leader, but not in the right direction,
Right.
right? So then I come back a couple weeks later and they're like, um, "Yeah, you know what you did with that gift card?" I'm like, "Uh, well, no. I mean, I know what her friend told me she was gonna do, but" I go, "She had told me she was gonna go buy, pizza for the homeless." And
Oh,
they
well.
go, "That's exactly what she did. She went across the way to the pizza place, bought a bunch of pizzas across the street to the park,
Wow.
and gave the pizza to the homeless people." And I go, "Man." In that moment, it's just so much pride. No one's watching her. No one's instructing her.
Mhm.
She won a prize. She told us what she was gonna do. The other kids gambled against her, even though they were her friends, and she actually did the right thing.
Right, right.
And it was such a beautiful moment that reaffirmed to me that when you provide people that are struggling with some resources, and you teach them a little bit about making healthy choices, they're gonna go out and they're gonna make those healthy choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would bet, to say that she had that on her heart before that, right? Even with not having the opportunity or the resources, that she thought, "You know what? I'd love to buy some pizza and give it, to the homeless."
'Cause she
But
sees them every day.
every
Walks
day,
by them every day at
every
that
day.
park, and she's like, "I wish I could feed these people."
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big heart.
Yes,
Our babies that struggle, they have big hearts, and we just gotta give them the right opportunities to fulfill that mission that those hearts give them.
absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, just, I really appreciate this conversation because you really taking us on a beautiful journey of
But, huh?
yeah,
Yeah,
of, like, going through these childhood experiences, how they shape us, but also, in terms of your leadership and your leadership model. Um, I wonder, like, if you got, um, words of advice for, like, anyone out there that's, like, self-doubting. Like, in the same way me and you describe it, like, "Oh, when I was little, I was just like, man, I don't believe it. I don't believe I could go places in life." If anyone's out there, maybe in their car listening to this podcast, and they're like, "Man, I got this job, I don't like it," or some high school kid that's like, "Hey, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna have a career in life," or even a college student. Sometimes my college students are struggling, like, "Oh, what am I gonna
yeah.
do?" Like, what would you tell them if they're, like, having that self-doubt right now?
That's a good question. I think, number 1 is, when you say that sometimes we wanna be, in with the crowd, like, this is the construct that's here. This is what I'm supposed to be doing because everybody else is doing it. And I would say, first of all, to be who you are, and that may be different from anyone else, but making sure that you're true to yourself, to the core of who you are. Be true to yourself, and um, I think, like my teacher told me, you are capable of great things.
Mm.
Don't let anyone tell you any differently. Circumstances and opportunities will come your way, but don't ever let anyone say that you are not capable. And so find who you are, your passion, and know that you're capable of that. And so that might be like finding a different job, right? It might be that you're hanging out with this crowd that you're supposed to because that's that's how you were raised or whatever, and that's not what you're feeling. And so it really is about knowing that you're capable of great things and following what that passion and what your heart says.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, one last question, I like to call it the, Real with Rios segment, and, hey,
Uh-oh.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I like it. And I hope you do too. So I like fixing things. So, people know I like fixing old cars. I got this old Camaro at the house. Been working on it with my kids for a while, and it runs. It runs. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's running. It's running. It's good. I mean, I was cruising it the other day. It's still a little beat up, but it runs. Um, but and then when I was a kid, man, I was always like picking up like broken things and trying to fix them. Even last night, actually, my wife was like, "What you been doing all night?" Because I was on in the dining room. I had this big like cushion that I broken and the zipper I was broken, and I'm
Yeah.
like spending like 3 hours obsessed that I'm gonna fix this one zipper, and my wife's like, "Just throw it away," I was like, "We don't need it." I was like, "No, I'm gonna fix this zipper," and I was like, anyway, like I like fixing stuff, but all to say that I think the reason that I like fixing stuff is because as a kid, everything was broken around me. My
Mm,
whole environment was broken, and my heart was broken, my soul was broken, I was broken, my mind was so I feel like that's my way of, like, repairing the broken things in life.
yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, for you, like, if there's anything right now in your life that you could fix, what would it be?
Anything in my life that I can
Anything you
fix.
could fix right now.
Gosh, Victor, that's being real, man. Um, I think for me, and I may have alluded to it earlier, is to stay steadfast in who I am. I talked about talking about what you believe in and who you are, and sometimes I just kind of go with the flow, man. I'm like, okay, cool. Even at home, we'll do this or we'll do that, even if it doesn't set right. And so, being able to speak and have a voice, not necessarily people have to agree, but to be able to speak and have that voice, I think that is something that I continue to aspire to be strong in everything that I do and talking with people as well. Um, the most important thing I think people can do um, in kind of being real is it's about being vulnerable. You know, it's about knowing that you don't have all the right answers. You go left sometimes when you should go right. And for people to be able to see that I don't have all the answers, it's okay. Um, it gives them that opportunity to be safe to make mistakes and to take risks too. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your
That's
question.
beautiful.
I don't
No,
know if I answered your question,
you
but
got to the a very profound moment, I think, which is the idea that like you're the boss, you got it together. You went from like being, this little kid that was vulnerable to this adult that became powerful, military, all of that,
yes.
right? Leadership, stripes, all of that,
Hmm.
credentials. But at the end of the day, we all are still seeking our voice, and that's what you alluded to.
Yeah.
And then, when you find your voice, it's like, and you're grounded uh, in success, um, you still have a duty. And for me, if I could repair anything in my life right now, I'd be the connection with my daughters because they graduated college, they got their masters, they're professionals now, they're working full time. So they live in San Francisco. And I'll call them like once a week, check on
Yeah.
them. I'll text them like once a week. Um, but I think I want to be able to have like a more steady and consistent relationship with them because we were tight when they were little, I stayed at home with them while I was in grad school.
Right.
And I changed their diapers, took them to the park. I was always there, coached their soccer team for years and years. I was a helicopter dad at the football games. I'd be like at the top of the stands. The boys were at the game. They're like texting me, "Dad, go home." Like I was there. And now that they're professionals and out of the house, it's like, okay, I gotta repair the way in which the consistency of being in touch with them.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Good
so
stuff.
just always reflecting, like you said something powerful. You said we're always trying to self-actualize. We're always on that journey to self-actualize.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Dr. Mcduffie, it's been an honor having you. Thank you so much to everyone listening. Thank you for being here. This has been another episode of Sueños to Success. Remember that sometimes, our successes come from those deepest struggles that we go through in life. Until next time, I'm Dr. Victor Rios. Take care, everyone. Thank you.